As I rummaged through the old furniture in the front of the dumpster, I couldn't believe it was already 6 months since I first came to live on the street. Before I get ahead of myself, let me take you back a bit. Trust me, you won't want to miss this crazy story.
As seniors, we have a lot of experience in the tech world. And let me tell you, we discovered the best browser for you guys. It's called Opera GX, and it's amazing. My favorite feature is its sidebar integration. So all your apps, like Facebook Messenger, Discord, WhatsApp, are right there when you open the browser up. If you're worried about moving all your stuff to a different browser, Opera GX gives you a super easy transition with its import tool. Just go to browser settings, then synchronization, import bookmarks and settings, import, and voila, you're ready to go. You can download via the link in the description. Oh yeah, there's also a mobile version you can use, which is in my opinion the best mobile browser out there. Trust me guys, you won't regret it.
At the beginning of the year, Mom and I decided that we were going to eat healthier and exercise. Mom was in charge of preparing the amazing meals, and I was in charge of the workouts. We were the perfect duo. That was until I got really ill and landed in the hospital in a coma. While in the coma, I heard everything. I heard when Dad came into my room, held my hand, and cried.
"Don't worry, it will be over soon."
I heard Mom say one afternoon. I could only assume that she was on the phone since I didn't hear anyone else in the room.
I know. It's just taking longer than planned. I'll get it done. I promise.
Another day, a man visited Mom at the hospital. They both seemed a bit frustrated as Mom hissed,
I know it's taking longer than planned, but I'll get the job done.
Around my second month in the hospital, when one day my eyes fluttered open. The nurse that was in my room at the time called the doctor and they examined me. About an hour later, Mom arrived, and by that time I was sitting up in bed chatting with the nurses. "Hi, Mom," I smiled. Mom didn't answer, but smiled politely at the nurse until she left. Mom looked angry.
This isn't how it was supposed to be.
She placed her hand on her forehead frustratedly. Suddenly, a man appeared in the room.
Did the doctor just say she won't?
His words trailed off as he looked towards my bed. I gave him a little wave. I recognized his voice. "Mom, who is this?" Mom glared at me.
This is a friend from work.
"So, where's Dad? Is he out in the hall?"
No, your father had an unexpected business trip he needed to attend.
Something about Mom's work friend made me very uneasy.
Hi, Mrs. Harris. You must be excited to see Karina awake.
Dr. Roosevelt smiled. Dr. Roosevelt filled Mom in on my assessment that was complete before she arrived. I spent another 2 weeks in the hospital before I was finally able to go home. Dad was still on his business trip. I needed to call Dad. I tried to call from my phone, but there was no service. "Mom, what's wrong with my phone?"
Well, you weren't in a position to use it, were you? So I thought it best to cut it.
"Will you be reconnecting it anytime soon?"
That won't be necessary.
I shook my head and walked to the kitchen to give Dad a call on the landline, but it went straight to voicemail. I left him a message stating how much I missed and loved him, and I couldn't wait for him to come home. Home, which was once a happy place, became a gloomy prison. Our windows were always closed. I wasn't allowed to go outside, nor was I allowed to use the phone or my laptop. "Mom, why are you doing this? Dr. Roosevelt said I could go back to school and live a normal life."
I'm just taking precautions. You weren't taking care of yourself while at the hospital, you know. That costs time and money, so I'll send you back to school when I'm good and ready.
One night, around 10 p.m., I heard the doorbell ring. Who in the world is coming to the house at this time of night? I snuck to the living room. There he was again, that guy, Mom's coworker.
Dennis, what are you doing here? I told you never to come to this house.
I don't care what you told me. We have to get rid of your husband.
I can't get rid of Mark. Karina is now awake. If he dies, then she gets a part of the pot.
Luca is breathing down my back. We have to act now. I don't want to end up in Dolphin's Lake like Stan.
Mom remained silent.
Well, if you don't want to deal with this little brat, then I will.
I knew I needed to get out of there. I stepped back and was about to turn and head back to my bedroom when I knocked over a vase from the bookshelf that I was standing next to. It shattered on the ground. Mom and Dennis looked in my direction and immediately ran towards me. I sprinted to my room and was able to lock it before Mom caught me. I climbed out my window and bolted down the street until I couldn't run anymore. Dressed only in my pajamas, I shivered as I walked down the street looking for a safe place to spend the night. My teeth clattered and my tummy growled. Just then, 3 men came out from a dilapidated 2-story house and walked in my direction. Quickly, I turned and walked in the other direction. Uneasy about being followed, I broke into a run, but I tripped over a crack on pavement and fell. Please don't hurt me. I placed my hands over my face and squeezed my eyes shut.
Hey,
A deep, gentle voice said.
we're here to help. We saw you wandering around and figured you needed some.
I opened my eyes slowly, and the man who spoke held his hand out to me.
Hi, I'm Big Tony, and this is Sid and Bootsy.
The other 2 men nodded politely. Big Tony shrugged the heavy jacket off his shoulders and draped them around mine.
Let's get you out of the cold and something to eat.
Once back at the house, Sid handed me a burger and a soda.
Sorry, the burger is cold and the soda is hot. We don't get many guests.
Sid smiled. After I ate, I told the guys how I ended up on the street. They told me they used to be in a gang and prison, but after they came out, they couldn't get jobs, so they ended up on the streets.
If you don't mind staying with a couple of bums, you're welcome to stay until you figure out your next step.
As the days slowly formed into weeks, I grew to love the guys like uncles. On the outside, they looked big and tough, but they were the gentlest people I'd ever met. Now that I've given you some backstory, let's go back to the part of the story where I was rummaging through the furniture in front of the dumpster. I noticed a car approaching and I recognized the license plate. It was Mom. I ran behind the dumpster and held my knees and placed my head between them. My heart pounded loudly against my chest. Someone sat next to me.
Is that her?
Sid asked gently. I nodded.
Yup, that's her. You guys know what to do.
I peered up from my knees and watched as Big Tony and Bootsy followed Mom's car. As soon as the car disappeared, I turned to Sid. Can we go home, please?
Sure, let's go.
Sid held out his hand and helped me to my feet. Approximately 30 minutes later, Bootsy and Big Tony returned.
So, what did you guys find out?
Sid raised his eyebrows. Big Tony rubbed his chin.
We followed the car to an old sawmill off Dundonald Road. I'll round up some of the other guys and check it out tomorrow night. That sawmill has been abandoned for years. What is she hiding in there?
Maybe my dad? I couldn't hold back the tears. Sid held me as I cried uncontrollably.
Don't worry, if your dad is in there, we'll find him.
Next night, Bootsy stayed with me, while Sid, Big Tony, and a few of the other guys went down to the mill.
Everything will be okay.
But what if they do find Dad and he's hurt, or worse yet? I couldn't bring myself to say the word. Bootsy squeezed my hand.
Whatever they find, Big Tony, Sid, and I will do everything we can to give you the life that you deserve. I wasn't supposed to say anything, but Big Tony got a job at the pizzeria taking orders. He's starting tomorrow.
Are you serious? Bootsy smiled and nodded.
You're the best thing that happened to us bums.
It was around 1 a.m. when the door flew open and Sid, Big Tony, and Dad, who looked battered, bruised, and exhausted, came into the house. Dad! I cried and hugged him. Thanks, Sid. Thanks, Big Tony. I looked at Big Tony closely. Big Tony had a wound in his lower abdomen. Big Tony, we've got to get you to the hospital.
We don't have time. We need to get you and your dad to safety now.
Okay, let's go. I pulled Big Tony's hand, but he didn't move.
I'll stay back and keep them off for as long as I can. I'll see you in a bit.
Big Tony smiled. Tears filled my eyes. I love you, Big Tony. I hugged him.
I love you too. I'll stay and help.
Sid nodded in Big Tony's direction. I hugged Sid quickly.
You guys need to go.
Dad and I followed Bootsy to a manhole at the back of the building that led to the drains below the pavement. Bootsy removed the cover and I jumped into the hole, then Dad, then Bootsy made his way down. He had just covered the manhole when loud explosions rang out. Bootsy, do you know how to get to Cleaver Woods? He nodded. We followed him quickly through the drains. Once we were in the open, Dad led us to a hut on the estate. While Bootsy and I talked, Dad called his lawyer, Errol, and gave him directions. Dad hung up and looked at us.
Errol said to wait here. He's on his way. He wanted to chat with me first before we got the police involved.
About an hour later, Dad heard a knock on the door and went to open it.
Hey, Errol. I'm so sorry, Dave. Be quiet.
I heard a third voice. It was Dennis. Dennis pushed Errol further into the room as he walked forward.
Now your good friend signed all the necessary paperwork for your estate, which means we no longer need any of you.
Dad placed me behind him protectively.
This will be your tomb. Which one of you wants to go first? How about you, big man?
The man walked over to Bootsy and pointed the bat in his face. I placed my hands on my ears and squeezed my eyes shut. I heard a loud smack and I screamed. I opened my eyes to see the man on the ground, and behind him was Sid. Sid! My eyes lit up. I ran over and hugged him. Dad called the police while Sid told Bootsy what happened at the house. The police came and questioned everyone. After, Sid, Bootsy, and I hugged before we went our separate ways. A few days later, Dad told me Mom had a gambling problem and she promised him she'd stop, but she got in deeper and deeper. The reason he worked so hard was to get money to help pay off Mom's loans.
I guess I thought I was doing her a favor by helping her, but I didn't. I guess that my life insurance money was her last hope. I'm so sorry to put you through all of that.
I'm sorry that you have to go through this, Dad. I believe that the both of us can make it together. We heard a knock on the door again. I'll get it. I ran to the door and opened it. Sid held a bouquet of flowers.
For the pretty lady!
Sid winked.
Are you guys ready?
Bootsy asked. Yep, we're ready. Dad drove us to Big Tony's funeral. He took care of all the arrangements. Besides us, there were a few other people who knew them from the streets. After the funeral, Dad invited everyone over to the house for lunch. One afternoon, Dad came to my room excitedly.
Guess what?
What?
We're millionaires.
Huh? Dad went on to explain that a friend of his at work encouraged him to invest in some stock, and the stock was now worth $4.5 million. Dad left the company he worked at and started his own business with Sid and Bootsy as his bodyguards. Who would have thought that these strangers would mean so much to me today? From strangers to friends to family. Continue to sleep in peace, Big Tony. We love you and we miss you.